This podcast is presented by the Commercial Space Project Group of the Space Generation Advisory Council. The SGAC, in support of the United Nations Programme on Space Applications, is a non-governmental organization and a professional network. Its goal is to convey the perspectives of students and young space professionals to the United Nations, space agencies, and academia. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Commercial Space Project Group podcast. I'm your host, Tsovinar Avagyan.
And I am your host, Marcelo Boldt. Today we are honored to be joined by a key figure in the world of space entrepreneurship, Mr. Thomas Olson.
Mr. Olson is a founding partner of Exodus Consulting Group, where he has helped shape the future of early-stage space ventures by connecting emerging tech startups with investors. He also serves as the founder and chair of the Center for Space Commerce and Finance, which organizes the NewSpace Business Plan competition, supporting commercial space innovators around the world.
He's also currently part of the leadership team at Avagyan, working on high-altitude platforms designed to bring communication services to underserved areas, an exciting alternative to traditional satellite systems.
In this episode, we will explore the evolution of commercial space. We will examine the challenges and success stories of space startups, discuss investment trends, and much more.
Mr. Olson, thank you so much for joining us. It's truly a pleasure to have you on the show. To kick things off, and as always, let's begin with an introduction. Could you please tell our listeners a bit about yourself and how you first got involved in the commercial space industry?
As usual, as most things in my life, I ended up getting there through the back door in one way or another. Believe it or not, when I was in university, my degree was in biology. And so I worked in medicine for a little while, and then I switched over, as it were. I was studying some engineering as a postgrad, and I ended up getting into IT I ended up in a 31-year career in IT. During that time, I was getting more and more interested in the space universe, as it were, and I didn't see a lot going on in the private commercial sector, so I wasn't paying a lot of attention to it until sometime around 1996, where I read some interesting material about potential commercialization of space and what was going on so far. And so I did a deep dive into that whole idea, and I started going to space advocacy conferences like Space Frontier Foundation, National Space Society, outfits like that. And during that time, I met some interesting people, and we started doing something with the Space Frontier Foundation called the NewSpace Business Plan competition. That was originally sponsored by Heinlein Prize Trust and run by the Space Frontier Foundation at their annual NewSpace conference. And that's where I met a lot of these people that I work with now, was during that period. And we started doing that for a couple of years. We started doing it really seriously starting in 2009 when we got a major grant from NASA Ames to really put some money out there and do some interesting things. And those competitions improved tremendously. And back then, that part of history, 2007, 2009, that period, we were like the only game in town doing stuff like this. No one else is, really paying much attention to it. What we call the giggle factor was still alive and well in the space community, in the investor community, because we'd also been doing some investor summits during that same period. And while we got a lot of interest, we didn't get a lot of money and or commitments. But it was but we kept doing those, and we persisted, and we kept on. And back then, when we were doing this, the industry as we know it just did not exist, and it was they were struggling, and so I knew, and some friends of mine got together, and we figured out that the real issue is not that the space private sector community isn't full of some very, very talented engineers and people who could, and builders, and people who love to bend metal and mix fuels together and try to fire up things or blow them up some days, and do other interesting things in that environment. What they lacked was any kind of a business sense. build it and they will come seem to be the operative business model for most of these people. And as history has shown us, the build it and they will come model really doesn't work very much or very often for most things. Venture capitalists already understand this. And so what we decided to do with the business plan competition, we decided to create it such that it truly simulated what a short meeting would be with a Silicon Valley venture capitalist. You might be part of a bunch of people and you go in to pitch your deal to them. They'll have a half a dozen people or so sitting in a room, and they're taking in all these folks today and listen to their pitches. And you have maybe 7-8 minutes to do a pitch, and you take some harsh grilling from the people sitting at the table, and then it's off to the next guy. And the whole purpose of that then is to try to teach them, you've got 6, 7, 8 minutes tops. That's all you've got to make a good first impression. What is your goal from that little quick meeting is to get them to take another meeting, to interest them enough that they want to spend more time with you. And that was the basis on how we made that work. We had something we called a boot camp, where for about a day and a half, the contestants would come in, and we have our unique way of doing things. It's kind of all in. It's it evolved over time, but what it is just a sudden, throw them in the Shark Tank kind of environment. Okay, you got here, you made it as a finalist because you had an interesting 2 to 3 page executive summary. Now show us what you can do. And the moment they get in the door on the first day of boot camp, every one of these finalists has to go up and do their pitch. They haven't practiced, and they're doing it in front of all the other guys, and in front of all the coaches, and everybody at once fires at them. Boom, 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 boom. Even their fellow finalists get to say something. And everybody gets to do that to each other, and that's the first half a day. We spend the rest of the day doing. We have some special presentations on certain aspects of fundraising. I do one on exit strategies, for example. And a lot of people pick up a lot out of this. By the end of that day and a half, their pitches are unrecognizable from the original. The improvement is absolutely outstanding, because the very next day we're putting them on a stage in front of real investors and a whole audience full of people, up to a few hundred people we've done this in front of, and they make it through quite well. And since we started doing this, let me back up a step. Around 2015, the people we were working through at these various conferences, mostly Space Frontier Foundation, they decided they didn't want what we were doing to be a project of that anymore. And that's when we spun out and became the Center for Space Commerce and Finance. We went on our own. We had
there for a minute for our listeners. So
yeah.
Just to remind them, when did you start with the business plan competition?
Okay. The business plan competition is a project of the Space Frontiers Foundation, actually started in the early 2000s. The first time the people I work with were tasked to help run it was in 2009. In 2011, we had 3 years of some very large grants from NASA Ames to help promote this. And we've gotten other corporate sponsorships since then. In 2015, the Space Frontier Foundation decided we don't want to do this project anymore. And so we had a nice budget that was ours. Essentially, it was our money. So we spun out and registered with the U.S. government and became our own nonprofit 501c3 U.S. corporation. And from there, we then became the owners of both the business plan competition and the Space Investment Summit.
That's fantastic. I mean, it's very, very interesting to see, or let's say to hear from someone who actually pioneered or helped people pioneer the commercial space industry as we know it. Because we started roughly at the same time as the SpaceX and the Blue Origins and so on. So, yeah, kudos to you, Thomas.
Yeah, it all happening at the same time, and starting in about that same time as we founded the center, things are all of a sudden moving really fast and furious. And the launch rate was getting higher and higher. A lot of great new companies were coming out and getting funding. and that was a big deal. And today, fast forward to 2025, we are a $625 billion industry.
That's just
And it's going to grow even faster now.
I guess when I was in college not so long ago, so 2011, 2012, the space industry was, I think it was something like half of it in terms of market value. Its growth has been exponential, which is it's amazing.
It has. And we've gotten to play our small part in all of this. Our goal is really, when I get up in the morning, I just want to help people empower themselves. And this is the place I chose to do it. Now, when I was, when in my IT career, I did the same thing. All I wanted to do as a senior systems administrator, and for content management and digital asset management, and a fairly decent sized corporation for at least half of that time. And really what I also did there is what I do now, is empower people to do better and be more productive and be happier with what they're doing in their lives. And so it's really a natural extension from my IT career to do what I'm doing now. It's a lot of fun.
Amazing.
So in all this time, we have, as of today, we have introduced over 90 companies to the world in a 15-year period. We have helped fund at least 30 of them.
Wow.
When you count up all the prize monies that we gave away, plus the micro grants that we're doing now, that's been our program, a monthly micro grant to a raw startup that's just barely off the envelope, not even out of the garage, and that's been actually kind of popular. So that's a fun thing to do as well. And we got other things in the pipeline that we're planning, but we got to get.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think this is going to be very interesting for our listeners because it's a common, let's say, a recurrent topic. People who are trying to do their own space startup. So people out there, if you're listening to this, please check the CSCF and their microgrant program.
Yes, definitely. It's such an amazing opportunity. And honestly, the way you're helping and inspiring people right now is just incredible. So we'd love to know who or what has inspired you the most in your space career.
Well, actually, it was a guy I met, and he was a guy who had been he'd been a great funder in the early days of space startups. He didn't always do very well with it because it was so new and everybody was making mistakes, and and he lost a lot of money doing what he did, but he couldn't help himself. He wanted to do it, and he was a telecommunications guy who had a couple of unicorns in the telecom industry back in the 90s, and you may have heard of him. His name is Walt Anderson. And he wrote the Space Frontier Foundation their first check in 1988. So he goes back that far. But he funded Rotary Rocket. He funded some X-Core Aerospace. He funded a lot of different things, and he was an inspiration to me because I finally got to meet him. And in 2004, we were actually at a Space Frontier conference. Is in L.A., Los Angeles, at the Queen. It was on the Queen Mary, and so that was a fun venue as well, because we were just first starting, and from an IT perspective, not even space. The conference is always really good, but the Queen Mary is all metal, right? And so you have this big ballroom. It's a one-track conference. Fortunately, there's one big ballroom where everybody watches the stuff going on the stage. Well, so these guys are coming in with lots of wires and things going to the outside, and they're doing portable transmitters inside the room. They're trying to light up the room for Wi-Fi, and that was insanely difficult for them back then. It's 2004, right? And so, but I end up being with him on a panel discussing space entrepreneurship and its future. And essentially, we agreed on so many things. He and I were having this bro conversation. There's like 3 other people on the panel. No one's listening to them. But they were hanging on to every word we said. We dominated the panel for the entire time. And we had to be friends after that. And years later, I ended up working for him at Avagyan. That's that's kind of my day job, my company now. It's, yeah.
I like to pick up on well, actually, I could could speak about or I am interested about hearing in your experience for a really long period of time. I think this is worth a really long conversation. Unfortunately, podcasts are a little bit shorter, but it seems that, well, it's clear that you witnessed the evolution of the commercial space industry. And what are the changes, the significant changes that you observed during throughout the years? And where do you see, as you were, let's say, talking back in the day about the future of space entrepreneurship, where do you see the industry heading in the, let's say, next decade?
Okay. I did a panel on this a year ago at the International Space Development Conference. I invited a bunch of people, really, really sharp people. I don't want to be the smartest guy in the room. I want to get smarter people to get them on a stage and say, okay, what do you see as the next big thing in space stuff? And you can't mention launch because that's the current thing. So, or anything surrounding it. And I got a lot of interesting answers. And actually, from my perspective, one of the things I think are going to be coming up next was we have like 126 launch companies now. And we don't know how long all of them are going to last. I think within the next 10 years, that number is going to be cut in half. Not because the industry will saturate with launch demand, but because there still will be, even with increased demand, there will be too many companies chasing after that demand, and a bunch of them will never be fully capitalized enough or successful enough, in their early stages to really get it done. So I expect right now there's 126 companies that claim to be in the launch space. I would bet by 2040 there will be 50 or less. They're actually, but they're all successful and they're all making money and they're all doing really, really well. And there'll still only be maybe half a dozen big players still, like SpaceX and Blue Origin and, some maybe Rocket Lab. I think it's going to get big. They just got a big contract from the Air Force for their neutron booster just this couple days ago. They just announced it. And so there's going to be
Evolving to satellite manufacturers.
Yep.
So there is a lot of things going on at Rocket Lab.
Yeah, I know that's a company I'm watching a lot. I like their backstory and their origin story, and I just, they're like the little rocket company that could, and these guys didn't know how to do anything. Now all of a sudden they got this thing, and they just sold it to the Air Force. When did that happen? And so that's where I see it go in launch. But there are other aspects to this that are going to come in that are going to start taking center stage. And in my own presentation, I mentioned biology. That's going to be huge because my focus is on settlement. We talk about who should go to space and who should be called an astronaut and all this other thing, but you realize in 64 years, there's only been about 640 people that have gone to space.
Yeah,
that's an average of 10 a year for 64 years. That's not good enough. I want to see 65,000 people go out into space and live there and work there and have their kids there if they can, and do all things of that nature and be a permanent extension of human civilization. That's the goal, is settlement. And to that goal, we need a lot of different things. Launch is one thing. We're going to need a lot of biology because that's what we're made of. And that's what we need, and we're going to need it to survive. And I think a lot of very interesting innovations are going to happen, both here and out there. They're going to discover new ways to do things that are going to be very, very helpful. So I like that. There's going to be new innovations in communication. There's going to be new innovations in mining. There's a company right now, they have a goal of essentially mining the lunar soil for helium-3 and other things. And they've developed a prototype thing that can do that. And they were the only people I've heard a lot of people talk about this, but these guys actually raised the money and are doing it because they did the one thing that none of these other guys did. They hired actual mining companies who make strip mining equipment on planet Earth and know how to do it.
Yeah.
And they figured out a way. They think they can go through like a metric ton of soil an hour, take what they have out of it, and just put it out the back end again, and you hardly notice that they'd been there. Because that was my biggest fear, was strip mining the moon for helium-3, leave all these scars on the moon, and we'd all see it from Earth, and that'd be horrifying. Well, they've already anticipated that problem, and are trying to do something about it from the very first prototype. This is the kind of things you're going to see happening. More and more stuff built by people who know how to do things really well here. I think you're going to find, I think when a large quantity of water is discovered on Mars someday, let's say, I think it's going to be discovered by guys who know how to drill oil wells in Texas. He said, but we drill it for water instead, because they know how to do it.
It's like space companies are using Earth as their playground to validate technologies, and that will let's say escalate or explode into many different directions.
Oh yeah, we have a thing. We have a term we use at the center. We call it space scalable, and that space scalable is a product, a technology that was actually originally designed for use in the terrestrial markets, in a, from small to a medium-sized market niche around the world, but could be scaled when the demand exists to have a space use. One of the winners of our competitions a few years back was a company that developed this handheld device. Wasn't much bigger than an old Sony Walkman or something, and basically you just breathed into it, put a breath of air into it, and it would do 10 different medical analyses of your current health condition. Now, the guy who invented this saw this. He wanted that in every emergency room and clinic in the world, which is perfectly fine. First time I saw that thing, I said, no, they need that on the ISS right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so he got a prize. He won a prize, for the competition that year. And he got a first place prize. And so, and they're still working out. It's like 10 years ago. They're still working hard, and they're doing a lot of great things. And they've, I think they entered a NASA challenge prize of some kind and did pretty well. And so these are the things that are happening. There's space scalable companies all over the place,
And
and they're going to become more prominent.
And I'm also curious, are there any other similar competitions from other organizations that we know of? And what makes the NewSpace business plan competition stand out from the rest?
Well, I can only really talk, in detail about the stuff that we do. But like I said in the beginning, when we started this, we were the only game in town. Now we have, other areas, other organizations that do pitch events. So there's a little bit of noise along with the signal out there, because not everybody, I don't think personally, does it quite as well. Only because usually most of these competitions that they do, it could be, I've seen it at there was a satellite conference. They did this, the last satellite conference we had in DC. They have a pitch event now. They don't do much in the way of pre-training, but interestingly, a lot of the people that go through our boot camp program end up pitching at the satellite conference in their thing. And so that's like amazing to me. I go, it's like old home week. I go to DC, I go to this conference, I go to this thing, and they have maybe 7 or 8 people pitching, and 2 of them I recognize. And they'll come running over, hey, how you doing? And I'm rooting for them. It's pretty wonderful. But we saw them first. We got to them first, and now they're ending up qualifying for all these other things that they go to, which makes me very happy. There's probably half a dozen good pitch events associated with other conferences. Most of the time, all they provide is after they have some kind of filtering process where somebody makes the cut, of course. But after that, they basically give them a stage, a podium, and a microphone for 10 minutes. And they get some questions from, investors, and that's about it. They don't give them the advanced training. They don't give them the boot camp. They don't give them, serious critique over how they're making their pitch or how they could improve things. So I think we still, even though we've been around the longest, we still have an edge in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I actually want to introduce to the audience. Let's say the commercial, the Center for Space Commerce and Finance. So if you can share with your listeners, what does where is the CSEF currently at? What are the organizations, the primary objectives, and how are you supporting the growth of the commercial space sector?
Okay. So as the center exists today, we're kind of a virtual team. So we're all, we've got people that work with us that are scattered over the place. I just talked to a guy recently. He's one of our board members is based in Seattle. Another is based in North Carolina. I'm based close to Orlando, Florida. Um, another guy's in Brooklyn, New York, when he's not in Portugal on his sailboat. And so we have people like that we work with. We have a whole string of folks that we also use for our coaches when we do, events, and they're from all over the place too. But we all gather together in one place to do the event. Right now, what we've got working is actually something near to your heart, Marcelo. It's something we want to do for the Space Generation Congress this coming September. What we call an elevator pitch competition, and where as many as 10 young professional or advanced student teams will stand up and do maybe a 2 to 3 minute elevator pitch. And then at the end of it, we'll have some judges, and they will decide who gets the prize. We want to award 3 micro grants out of 10 participants during that event. And then right after that, we're doing another space investment summit. We've only done, in the past, we've only done one space investment summit out of North America, and that was in Luxembourg in 2018, which is very well attended and everybody liked it. And so they decided to clone it and, not use this anymore. But that's how things go in this industry. Everybody kind of, begs, borrows, and steals from everybody else. So you take the hits once in a while. But we're gonna do one. We want to do one in Australia in particular, because this will be the first time we can attract in Oceania, Asia, Pacific Rim type investors from those parts of the world that haven't come to a space investment summit before. And there's a lot of people. In fact, I know I'm working with a group right now in Thailand and in Taiwan as well, they've really expressed an interest in something like this, and they've got investment capital to put in, and they're interested in space, and they just don't know what all the opportunities and the risks are. And so this is for them. And we're going to get people. I've got some people lined up from Australia and from the U.S. and from Europe that could come in. They're going to get a lot of great presentations. There's going to be a lot of networking going on. And I think it's going to open up a whole new world for a whole lot of people, and not just help space companies, empower themselves, but now I'm going to help potential space investors empower themselves in parts of the world that never got a chance to participate before. That kind of inclusion I really, really like. It expands the industry, and it expands business, and expands, everything.
Yeah, it's so important.
Fantastic.
And for aspiring entrepreneurs looking to enter the space sector, for those who are just starting, doing their first steps, what advice would you offer to navigate the complexities and challenges of the industry?
Oh, well, you know what? It's not as complex as you think it is. First, it depends on what you're doing. What are you doing? You're doing another launch company? Well, okay, be warned, there's already 126 guys ahead of you. And those aren't the ones named SpaceX and Blue Origin are getting all the deals. It's all the other, small sat guys. That's what most of the launch companies out there are doing. So if you're into launch, that's a very, very big competitive deal. If you have something else interesting you can add to that, if you have a better navigation system, if you have a better communication system, if you do want to do something in nanotech or biotech even, if you look at it right, there's probably room for you somewhere in the industry going forward. Because again, if the focus is on long-term settlement, everything is necessary. Every industry has something to offer space, and space has something to offer every industry. So look carefully at what you're doing. And then, very importantly, because I insist on it in the boot camp, who is your customer? And even just as importantly, who is their customer? Once you get that kind of supply chain track nailed down, then you have a better idea how to pitch your proposal and to the right people to pitch that proposal. And that includes the investor community as well as the advocacy community or some other in some other industry. That makes sense?
Of course, knowing your customer and really keeping them in focus is always a smart move across any industry. Marcelo, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Just one last question.
Okay.
I want to give you the room, Thomas, to, because let's say our listeners, they are between the ages of 18 to 35 years old, and they are university students, high school students, young professionals. What would you tell them to motivate them and pursue, let's say, a startup, a space company? What
Okay.
should I
Well,
know?
First thing, I love still being alive in this time, because when I started this and all my friends started this, there was pretty much nothing out there. And, and the laugh factor was really huge. And it was a horrendous struggle, but we had this vision of this new reality that we could create, and we just kept at it, and we never gave up, and we never stopped, and we never surrender. So even in this day and age, with all the incredible new opportunities that are opening up, just keep your eyes open, watch the whole sector and see how things kind of tie together, and you'll start forming your own connections. And go to an advocacy conference once in a while. I know IAC is the biggest one. That's like this, what we call the Super Bowl of conferences. It's in Sydney this year as well, along with the Space Generation Congress. And if you can make your way over there to see these things in action, your mind will be blown by what you will see. And there are other places you can go as well. There's also this little interesting thing called New Worlds. It's in Houston in very late fall. That's always a lot of fun, and that's a very eclectic crowd. But they also, because they're more artsy, and so the things you get there are pretty astounding that you just never expect to see. It's always fun to go there and meet those people as well, and they're all practical-minded people. They keep their feet on the ground, but keep your eyes in the sky, keep reaching for the stars, but keep your feet on the ground, and you'll be okay. And just never give up and never surrender.
I think that's what we want to share with our audience.
Yes, exactly.
Cool. Thank you very much, Thomas. Yeah. So to close today's episode, I will leave the floor to my co-host, Tsovinar.
That brings us to the end of this thought-provoking conversation with Mr. Olson. Mr. Olson, once again, thank you very much for today's discussion, and for everyone listening, if you found this discussion insightful, make sure to subscribe, share, or leave us a review. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time, keep looking up and thinking beyond.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.